Okay.
So the screening is going on and we're going live. Okay.
You give us a thumbs up if you can, Eduardo, or
It's there. We're live.
we're live?
Yes, we're live.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucio Padilla Jr. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology for Calexico Unified School District. And we're here just very, very excited to be here this evening with you. We have a new committee, is the Guiding Coalition for Learning. It's composed of different stakeholders from across our school district, very, very vested members of our community that are here to really look and explore and learn about learning. How does learning happen? How does learning happen best? And how can we use our learning to inform and help shape where we go as a school district and how we serve our students? Before we get started, we just finished the broadcast of Most Likely to Succeed, which we had over 80 people that were on doing the screening, and we had a very, very rich discussion. And so this is a continuation of that screening where we're going to go at a deeper level into those conversations. But before we get started, I want to thank our panel. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. I'm going to call them in order from how I see them on my screen to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with some questions. So Jessica, if you can introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Herrera, and I was a student here in Calexico. I graduated from Calexico High School in the class of 2016. I just graduated from UC Irvine in biomedical engineering, so I'm excited to finally be an engineer. And I will be starting my PhD in UC Berkeley in August. So I'm excited to start a new journey, but it's always nice to come back and help the community. And definitely the Valley has my roots, and that is why I always want to help and continue in fostering the education of all of the students in the Imperial Valley.
Awesome, thank you so much, Jessica. Karina?
Hello, everybody. My name is Karina Montaño. I am a principal at Blanche Charles Elementary School here in Calexico. Before principal, I was a teacher for over 18 years and an academic coach. And I'm happy to say that Jessica was one of my students in 6th grade. So it's really nice to see you all here participating in this great and very much needed discussion, and what can we do to improve our students' education here in Calexico District.
Thank you. Fernando?
Hi, hello everybody. Good evening. My name is Fernando Arguelles, and I'm an educational technology coach for Calexico Unified School District. And I've been a teacher for 21 years now in Calexico, and also a Calexico native. So I'm really happy to be here to join everybody this evening.
Thank you. Esmeralda?
Hi, my name is Esmeralda, and I am an incoming junior at Calexico High School.
Thank you, Esmeralda. Cecilia?
Hello, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. I'm Cecilia Arellano. I am an alumni from Calexico High School, graduated class of 2019. I am currently a UC Davis student, 2nd year, studying to be a biological systems engineer. And lo que sea para ayudar a la raza, ¿verdad? So we're here, mejorándolos.
Thank you, Cecilia. Gracias. Mario?
Buenas tardes. My name is Mario Magallanes, and I've been a teacher. I just finished my 22nd year teaching, and I've taught math, science, and STEM. And here we are.
Awesome. Thank you. Yanesi?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Yanesi Rodriguez, and I'm an incoming senior at Calexico High School.
Thank you, Yanesi. Thank you so much. Terry?
Hi, everyone. My name is Terry Collins. I'm an academic support teacher at Kennedy Gardens. I have worked with the district for over 24 years, and I'm happy to be here discussing what we want to call our new normal in education.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let me get us kicked off with the questions. I'm going to start with, I'm going to ask Fernando. I'd like to pose you this question. Fernando, in the film, we had the student, Samantha, a very shy student, and she was encouraged by her teacher, Mr. Aguirre, to reflect on her interests and her abilities. And so what we found so interesting was just having the teachers take such an interest in going real deep into what their interests were and asking them to identify their strengths and their weaknesses and asking them about their confidence. What did you think about that part? And to what degree do we encourage students to participate in self-reflection and self-assessment? And do you think that this practice is worthwhile?
Yeah, it's it was great to see in the film the whole process of reflection and more so self-reflection for the student. You know, with over 20 years of teaching experience, I have to say we seldom use this strategy. Not that it's not used. We're seeing more and more project-based learning in classrooms, and you see a little bit of the reflection piece in there. But honestly, we don't use it as much, at least not in the way that we saw described in this film. I think in a large part, it really is, whether you're looking at inquiry-based learning, you're looking at the engineering design process, that reflection piece is going to be very critical. I mean, we have 2 engineers here on board, and I'm sure that's a big part of their process when they think through a project or they're thinking through a process of any kind. I think we you know, as human beings, we learn from our mistakes. We know that failure is a big part of learning, and that's how we grow. And I think that if we don't allow for that reflection piece, there's no real way of really delving deep into learning from those errors, right? From those mistakes. And I think primarily in any type of project, whether it's, you know, writing a speech, a presentation, putting together a production of any sort, whether it's computer programming, I mean, any process really is going to take a lot of steps, and being able to, not just at the very end, but throughout the whole process, looking carefully at what you're doing and then going back, right? We know that like the engineering design process, it's cyclical. So we always come back to the beginning, right? To the problem itself. So it's really important to have that reflection piece, to see where we started, where we're at continuously through the process, and at the very end, you know, to really be able to reflect back at where we started, and if we've met that criteria or solve that problem, and if we haven't, how do we get back to resolving it, right?
Awesome, thank you. Jessica, I don't know if you may just if you can kind of chime in also your thoughts just to that whole process of the value of self-reflection, self-assessment. You know, we just graduated, we congratulate you, and we know you're on to your doctor's degree, which is so awesome. To what degree would you agree or value just the taking the time to have students to self-reflect and to self-assess and to inquire about more into skills such as, or just student confidence? And you're on mute, Jessica. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I think those skills are very, very important, and I definitely agree with Mr. Fernando Arguelles, because I think that is something that we can help the students develop. And I will talk more about being in college or trying to get an internship or trying to get a job. When I saw the film, and it was this little 9th grader, and she was being questioned by a panel of teachers, and they were asking her, so what do you think you can improve on, or what do you think are one of your weaknesses? And to see this 9th grader articulate what she lacked and what she could improve on, I think that is something that we can help the students do. Because I have been in many interviews, and when you're trying to get a job position, they always ask you, what are your weaknesses and what are your strengths? And when you're first asked with that question, you really don't have an answer, because you have to be able to think about yourself, think about your qualities, what are your weaknesses, and how you can improve on them. And even when you're trying to apply into universities, I also had to fly and go to many colleges, and I was interviewed by many professors, and they always ask you, who are you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How can you improve? And they even ask this question, and I'm always terrified about this question. And they think about once in a while, when did you have a group project? What did you do wrong? And how can you improve on it? And when you're in a technical interview, you really have to think about one time when you had a project and you did something wrong and you had to really assess how you can change that. So I think if we do this in Calexico and maybe just have self-reflections with students, maybe having them talk to their teams or talk to their teachers, I think that can really prepare them for the future and having these interviews, whether it is professional or in academia and trying to get into higher education. I think it is something essential, and maybe not just in the professional, but something personal. If you're able to assess, okay, I was in this situation, this is how I handled it, and this is how I should have handled it. So as Mr. Arguelles mentioned, being able to point our mistakes and learn from them. That is something that will not help us professionally, but personally in being better human beings and being better citizens of our community.
Thank you, Jessica. Jessica, just a little earlier while we were having the discussion right after the broadcast and we were sharing our golden nugget, you alluded to the particular scene in the movie where the teacher, Mr. Aguirre, or when he made the comment that if we've never asked students to make decisions, how can we expect them to be able to make decisions? Why did that resonate so strongly with you?
That resonated with me because when you're in college, you are asked to make all of the decisions. So when you're in college, they say, what major do you want? And many times we don't know the answer. It is something that slowly it can change, and that is completely okay because we have to find what our passion is and what we want to do with our lives. But when we are faced with this decision, choose a major. What do you like? What do you want to? What do you want your job to be for the next 50 years of your life? So these are important questions and decisions that we have to make. And I think decision making is a process that we have to learn. And it's a process that we can help the students tune. And for example, this past year, I had a class that was the entire year. So it was my senior design class. So in my senior design class, we had to choose one project, one engineering project, and we had to choose a team. And in this class, we had to choose everything about our entire project. Nothing, we were not giving any instructions. They just said, find a clinical relevant problem in medicine, make your own project and present it in front of everyone. So I think that was something very new to me because they always give you the guidelines and these are all the materials you're going to use. And this is what I want you to make. But at this point, they completely gave me nothing and I had to come up with this new device. And I think that is something that we could give the students more on decision making and having more project-based, for example, tests or finals. One of the things that was mentioned in the film was that instead of having a final or an exam, we could have a project. And I think that is something that I have in college all of the time. I do have a lot of finals and tests, but at least in engineering, all of the projects were vital. I had to do so many group projects, and it's about building all of the necessary characteristics or techniques that we have, like critical thinking, communication, creativity, communicating with your team. And many times they think, oh, engineers, they don't like talking to anyone, they're very shy. But it's not true. We have to work in teams with so many different engineers and being able to give presentations and public speaking and all of those skills. I feel that I really had to tune when I was in college. So by giving the students the opportunity to have these projects, to make their own decisions, we're allowing them to hone their creativity, to be able to get out of their shells, out of their comfort zone. And these are skills that are going to help them in college and in life. So when they said, how can students make decisions if you don't give them the chance? I think that really blew me. And then because it is true, when I was given the chance to make my own decisions, I think over time, I've been able to make them. But if we give this to the students early on, I think that could really benefit them in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Cecilia, I want to ask you, so you graduated, you just finished your first year at UC Davis. And if you can think back to kind of reflecting on your first year and kind of going back to high school, if we had to ask you, what are like the top 5 skills that at Calexico Unified we should be focusing on to prepare kids for post high school? And that's the interesting question, right? Because it's post high school, right? It could be college or it could be career. If there was like a top 5 skills that you think that we should be focusing on for as we work with students to prepare them for after high school, what would you say they be?
5 skills, I can list them fast. Okay, so now that you're talking about self reflection, that's one skill right there, the first one. I'm kind of not against, but I'm still kind of on a tightrope about self-management, time management, networking. That's another thing that we really don't emphasize on a lot. Autonomy, we kind of have to let students kind of let go of their hands and just walk down the rope by themselves. And the last one would be confidence. Make the students confident. But anyway, so I like that self-reflection conversation that was going on. Self-reflection was something that I really struggled with my first year of college. It's something that I was really afraid of, like not even taking it to the extent of projects or anything like that. It was, self-reflection is just something so personal, and you're even sometimes really scared to admit to yourself your own wrongs. And I really felt like my first year of college was going to be a year of growth, and it really was, but it wasn't as much as I expected because I was scared to do that self-reflecting process, because nunca me lo inculcaron desde que estábamos in high school, right? It was never really nourished since I was in high school. So just something that I've been learning lately how to do, and because I got tired of not feeling like I'm not doing super well in my classes, feeling like I'm not doing super well in my classes, and I'm taking a summer class right now, and I just took a midterm today. And I was like, you know what? Time to self-reflect. What am I doing wrong? What's working? What's not working? Nothing's working because I'm not really doing anything. And those are things that you have to tell yourself. Those are things you have to, write on a journal, right? Or tell your family, tell yourself, just sit in front of a mirror and just speak to yourself or speak to other people. And yeah, another one is networking. Professors love when you network. Office hours. I know a lot of people, when you two high schoolers right now are Calexico current students, I know you're going to hear this a lot when you grow and you go into college. Office hours. A lot of, at UC Davis, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but at UC Davis, there was a big group of us that went to UC Davis. We all went. And I think, I don't want to generalize or anything, but people that come from the Valley are kind of scared to go to those office hours and to network with the professors. I don't know if it has to do, I really don't know where that stems from, but we just weren't, since we didn't really network with a lot of professionals during our high school career, it's tough to do. You're just like, eres un niño chiquito y te soltaron ahí nomás en el parque, and you're like, whoa, what the heck? What do I do here, So yeah, I think those are, out of the 5, networking and self-reflection are the 2 that I really stress on.
The networking one is so interesting because I actually share that early in my career as a teacher, going to professional development events, the learning was just while I attended workshops. That's when my learning occurred. But as I matured and I evolved as an educator, I learn now just as much from networking. Networking has become just a big part of my professional learning. Networking locally with our educators here in Calexico and the Valley, networking on social media, just being connected to educators, just really, and to be honest with you, I mean, just really across the country. and then sometimes even beyond just the United States. But networking is just a big major piece of my learning now. So I mean, that whole piece when you mentioned networking, just it really, I mean, really stood out for me as we're talking about that. Let me ask our teachers and our principal, just hearing the alumni here speak here for a little bit and some of the things that they chimed in, what's going through your mind? What comments, what thoughts, what comments or thoughts do you have, or even connecting it back to the film? You can just go ahead and share. What are your thoughts or comments or questions?
I'll add that as I hear you speak about networking, that's what we're doing right now, right? We're networking, we're connecting with different people, and you guys have, the freedom to always reach out to us. We're here if you ever have any questions or you need us. We're just really excited to hear your thoughts and your input on what you saw today. Going back to the whole idea of what happened with Samantha, definitely reflection would be something that I feel should be, it should be a focus in a classroom, right? It should be those opportunities, that environment should be provided for students so they can learn how to self-reflect. Even if as I hear you speak about it now, I'm thinking, wow, it's really important that we provide those opportunities for our students. Just thinking in the elementary level, my wheels are turning. What can we do? What else can we do that we're not already doing? So it's just really nice to hear your thoughts and your input on how we can better improve our school system so that when our kids get to the high school level or university level, they're more productive. I think also confidence is my number one on that list, Cecilia, you mentioned. The importance of confidence. When I was teaching, I remember how much better our students would do when they had the confidence in them, feeling that they couldn't do something. They just would close down and they wouldn't even try, that fear of not trying. But once that confidence was built into them, and they got that taste of it, I could just see their eyes just lighten up. So I agree with you on that scale of confidence. Very important for kids to be successful. And it is something that, again, we have to provide those opportunities and create that environment so they can learn it, sooner rather than later.
Awesome, thank you. Terry, Mario, questions, comments?
One of the things that it's really interesting is how the way that they were doing the reflection with the student. It was a presentation per student, and it was a dialogue between the teachers and student. I tried to do something similar in the class, and you always have the pressure of the curriculum and the pacing guide and the common assessments, and it takes quite some time to go student at a time. And then I changed that into do it group work. Once you finish your presentation, once you finish your video, because they don't present in my class, they make a little video. Once they finish the video, they needed to explain to me their learning process, reflecting on their learning process, and more than anything, reflecting on what role they took. Were they the leaders? Were they the followers? And who gave them those roles? How the synergy in the group became alive. And it still takes a lot of time. And when you have the pressure of teaching the AP class and going on everything that you have to for the, and it's not irrelevant. It's not. I mean, I saw my students, learn a lot, but then there's the other class, my MESA class where there's no curriculum, and I can take 2 days in going over reflections, and it's really nice because they present their project, whether it's going to be the project for competition or whether it's going to be their project for just the class. They present the project, and I try for them to think that they're engineers presenting to a panel where they're trying to sell their idea, and the reflections go into whether it's complete or not complete, and if it was not complete, why, how to make it to the deadline the next time, because the project is broken down into different sections where they have to present something, whether it's complete or not, before it's the final product, and it works well. And you see how the students change from the first time where they really don't know what to say when they're reflecting on their own work, to the presentations towards the end of the school year where, you know, they're valuing who they are and what they are and what part they play in that project.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you. Terry?
I just think that self-reflection is very important, and I think it's a culture. It's a part of a culture that we need to create in the classroom. But it's not, like Mr. Magallanes is saying, it's not easy. It's not easy for us as teachers, but it's something that should be part of it. And I used to do it with my writing process, where I would have the students read their writing, and then I would have them work with partners, and then they would give each other feedback. But I think that the way they are doing it in the documentary is at a different level, because they're including the teachers, the peers, and I think I saw the parents as well. So I think that to get to that level, it's small steps, baby steps, in building a culture where self-reflection is part of the daily life in the classroom.
Thank you. So a lot of conversation on self-reflection. So I want to ask Yanesi and Esmeralda, as you're hearing the group, you know, just speak about self-reflection, how do you think, and you heard about the challenges, right? It's challenging, or it seems challenging, or has been challenging to incorporate self-reflection, as it can interfere with the pace and the amount of things that need to get covered. Any ideas as to how do you think, from a student's perspective, that we can make more opportunities for self-reflection? And I'll start that with my first of two questions for you girls. How do you think we could make self-reflection happen on a regular basis, or if you don't agree with it, then just, you know, let us know if you disagree, if that's a valuable practice.
I agree that self-reflection is very important. And as a student of Magallanes for 2 years, I believe that after every presentation, every project that you turn into to a teacher, that teacher should be able to give the student the assignment of self-reflection, as Magallanes used to do to me. I've been doing the self-reflection from my freshman year to my sophomore year. Well, as an assignment, of course. After that, I continued on my own. But that's because he installed that ability to question myself. Where can I improve? Because there's always improvement in every area, in every aspect. There's always going to be room for improvement, whether it's to fix small little flaws that you have, or to make things better. You're always going to have room for improvement, which is what self-reflection is. It's to improve yourself, so that way you are more presentable to other people, whether it's to make projects or something as small as an opinion or anything in general. Self-reflection is just overall important, and I believe that teachers should enforce it more in daily classes.
Thank you. Esmeralda, what are your thoughts on self-reflection, and you know, any ideas as to how we could make it happen more often, if you believe in it?
Well, first of all, I really do think that self-reflection is a very important step in the process of learning, because again, like we looked over in the documentary, there's a really big emphasis on, like, we make mistakes and we have to learn from them, right? Another thing that I'd like to add is that usually, like, one of the most, like, well, the best learning experiences I've had in school were actually when we had a test and the teacher was like, okay, review what you guys did wrong, discuss with your partners what and why you did it wrong, explain it, and have a discussion. Or also, for example, I remember when I was in 9th grade with Miss Flores in English class, we would have a test, and she would actually give us the opportunity to advocate for ourselves if we think that this question or this answer we gave was right. And I think that those, that communication between teacher, student, and, in between classmates about our mistakes, what we did wrong, is very important, because it really gives the impetus to learn. Additionally, I think that it's very important, to focus on communication as well, because we live in a community where a lot of students come from Mexicali, they come from Mexico, they cross over here, they emigrate, and they don't really know the language that well, right? So because of that, um, I've noticed that a lot of students have a lot of issues with English, even if they started learning it from, middle school, which obviously, it happens, right? But a way we can facilitate it is that if we put more importance on, talking, communication, projects. So once they leave out of high school, they're not in between of, I don't know enough English, but I don't know enough Spanish either, because this transition is actually pretty hard. I've lived it myself. When I was a kid, I went from, fui de Mexicali y vine para acá. Cuando era niña, I took the standardized testing in order to, prove that I was an English speaker, and it was actually pretty hard. So that's my take from it.
Thank you. Ms. Montaño, I want to ask you from the perspective of a principal, and let's just say, and you had several teachers on that documentary screen a little earlier today. You had some teachers that were inspired to incorporate more self-reflection into their daily instruction, a part of the regular instruction. But what would your thoughts be?
Absolutely. I would fully support any type of implementation that would involve self-reflection. I think it's very important for the learning process of our students and for the environment itself in the classroom. Any type of support that they would need from me to implement or ideas, training, strategies, support, group talks, the same way we're doing it now. I would fully support any type of self-reflection they'd want to do in the classroom. I think it would really make an impact in their teaching and instruction. And most importantly, those important skills that kids need to have, nowadays for whatever choice or decision they make in their future as career path or pathway they want to take. So
And self-reflection isn't just a great skill for kids too. I think it's a great skill for the adults too, right?
Yes, that is true. That is true.
It's like what you did for us right now that you asked us, Mr. Padilla, about the nugget. It's just a way of summarizing, and summarizing is a really difficult skill, but it's a very important part of the learning process because it allows the students to summarize it, whether you do it in a class period or you do it at the end of the day in elementary. It allows them to hone in to that they are able to learn from whatever classes or lessons they participated in.
Thank you.
And just to add, Mr. Padilla, it is a skill that needs to be taught. I remember doing a project in my classroom where the kids self-reflected on a self-portrait. It was something that we did at Jefferson. And we had the whole group self-reflect and give feedback to that one student. And also, students need to be taught how to be empathetic when they're giving their own feedback to students. So definitely a skill that needs to be taught and not just done through a lesson. It needs to be focused on.
So true, so true. Ceci, go ahead.
So I know I mentioned this last time we had a panel a long time ago. But something that I would really, really recommend and I really stand for is a mentorship program. I feel like a lot of times kids don't want to listen to teachers. I don't know why. They're in their rebel stages. And so I feel like sometimes, having another student tell you, hey, you know what, this is what worked for me. This is what you should do won't only help the student who's mentoring self-reflect, but it's also going to help the student being mentored self-reflect. And, I was a mentor and I was mentored myself and I self-reflected. I think those were the points in my life where I mostly self-reflected and they're really helpful. So I will continue to push for a mentorship program. I don't know how, but yeah.
Keep making that voice strong there for sure. Fernando, I want to ask you, I think the group completely agrees just on the importance of self-reflection and the value, and certainly one of the other sides of it is just the challenge of how do you do it with, with some of the barriers, time and so forth. Any thoughts, ideas, how you could chime in as to some potential of how to address the time constraints, but still be able to find the time for reflection.
You know what? Yeah, I mean, and right now I guess it's the perfect time really because of our current situation. I mean, our focus is a little bit less on standardized testing, and so we have a little bit of less pressure on that on just focusing in on whatever's on the curriculum and curriculum guides. Not that we're not going to teach that, but I think bottom line is, as a teacher, once you know your content well enough, you know what's best for your students, you know what they need to learn. You can weed out what isn't as necessary and focus on what is really, really important before they walk out of the classroom. And just to answer that question is just self-reflection needs to be embedded. I mean, reflection, the whole process needs to be embedded in your teaching, right? It needs to be part of that whole process, whether it's, like I said before, within a project itself, whether it's after taking a particular type of test, whether it's just like what Ms. Montaño just mentioned right now. It's just they did a self-portrait. They're reflecting on that self-portrait. It's really important to understand ourselves as human beings. And I think, like Jessica mentioned earlier, more than anything, it's going to help you improve as a person, right? As a better contributor to society, to the community that you live in, and that you're a part of. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to help you grow as a professional as well. It's going to make you more marketable as an employee, right? And you're going to be able to move on to different roles within your profession. I think it is really important, this whole reflection piece. I think that's why it stood out so much in the film to many of us, and we were able to make those connections to that process, right?
I think that's so crucial. That's so oftentimes, I mean, to some degree, sometimes we focus so much on developing the academics, developing the head, right? So much focus on the academics, but there is, and self-reflection is such a powerful tool to also just develop the heart, just develop the person and develop that empathy and that care and really how do they become a better person. So true, so true. So was someone going to chime in?
No, I'm just going to add that yeah, definitely that I made a big connection with Ms. Montaño also mentioned empathy, and I think that behind everything that we do, we have to teach very specifically and very purposefully. We need to teach empathy, right? Because it's one of the things that helps us through so much of what's happening today in society, in our current society. So many of the social issues we're seeing is a result of a lack of empathy. And I think that, that needs to be taught specifically in school, because it is going to help you for your profession. It is going to help you for your learning in the classroom, but it's going to help you to be a better person, right? In general.
Thank you, Fernando. Jessica, were you going to jump in?
Yes, I think something critical now that we are focusing on self-reflection is that self-reflection can lead to so many other qualities in ourselves. I think something that we really need to foster in our students is passion. For example, like passion and being able to be resilient. So I think something that they also mentioned in the film a lot was having grit. How do you give grit to your students? Because that is something that they need to learn. They need to be able to find their passion. And if we don't have students that with passion, we're gonna have students that are uninterested, or as one of the students said, oh, I think this is boring. And for me that I felt like, wow, like at least myself, I've always loved learning. And I think that is one of the reasons why I've been able to succeed along the way. So I think we need to help these students see that learning is so much more than maybe just sitting in a classroom and gaining all this information. And for example, I want to share that my grandmother would always tell me that learning is something that we all should have, because when she only studied up to 5th grade, and she would always tell me, you have to keep studying, you have to keep reading. And she wanted to be a teacher. And she always told me that learning is a privilege and that we should all use it, and we should all have the opportunity to have it. And I think that is something that maybe students don't see, that many people back then didn't have that privilege, and now we all have it. And it's something that we need to maybe find ways in the classroom to have them be more involved, maybe be a little more in charge of their learning in some ways, like as we mentioned, having projects, having more communication with other students, being a little more involved. I have always been a hands-on person. So I was a part of MESA, I did robotics, I did a bunch of projects. I remember with Miss Montaño one time, we were learning about history in ancient Egypt. And I remember that I dressed as a Roman and I give a presentation. And I looked kind of funny, but that stood out to me. I still remember a 6th grade me being dressed as a Roman giving a presentation. So it's those little kinds of things that when we engage the students, when we engage them into the learning, it's when we give them a purpose, when we engage them and when they remember. And as it's well said, if you can teach me, I can be involved. But when you help me be involved, that is when the learning really happens. And I think for me, I've always loved learning. That's why I want to go into academia and probably hopefully come up with my own theories and I don't know, whatever happens later. But I think that is the main thing. We need to really help our students be involved, and we need to activate their curiosity so that they want to learn, so that they can have all of these other things, all of their future open up to them. Like we all think, oh, I can be a doctor. And I wanted to be a doctor, but until I joined MESA is when I learned that there was engineering, that I could go into academia, that I could get a PhD, that I could do all of these other things, and that education is the tool to do that. With education, I can grow so much more and have so many new things. So I think besides self-reflection, grit and passion is something that that our students need to have in order to succeed, because college was hard. But with passion and being able to hold on and be resilient, that is what really got me through, because it's not about being intelligent, it's about being resilient and being able to hold on.
I just love how strongly, and I know it's true for everyone in this group here, but I just love how strongly Jessica articulates her love of learning. I know every district in the nation is their goal to create lifelong learners, and so I'll ask this question for anybody that'd like to jump in. To what degree, what more can we do to nourish, to foster that love of learning? If we want lifelong learners, how do we intentionally, by design, work at creating more lifelong learners, or that love of learning that we just so beautifully heard described from Jessica? What more could we do to foster that love of learning intentionally and by design?
Well, I just want to share, I really like the message that Sir Ken Robinson at the end of the video, he likens education to like an organic system, right? He says education is a complex human system, right? And that people are a lot like a garden, right? And I think Brian Wong at the end of the previous meeting, he kind of alluded to it also, and just the fact that plants essentially they grow themselves, right? But you have to have the right conditions for them to grow. And in the same way, that's what I would say. What we need in education, in our education system, is to just create the right conditions for learning to really flourish and grow.
So you make an interesting point there, but I'd ask to elaborate. What are those conditions? What would those conditions be? And it could be from the group. What would be those conditions be? I agree with you wholeheartedly. But what would those conditions be to continue to create and foster that love of learning?
I think something that is.
If I may add to what Mr. Arguelles is saying, I think in the analogy of the garden, our students are our seeds or the plants, but we need to know them exactly and we need to know what they need in order to flourish. So some plants need more sun, some plants need water or less water. So the students in the same way may need something different from us. So I think building relationships is a very, very important aspect in order to be able to have those seeds blossom and grow and continue to love to learn. Because by nature, I forget who it was who said it, but the brain is made to learn regardless. So what do we need to do to inspire our students to learn what they're passionate about?
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Collins completely, and just the fact that those conditions need to be definitely building those relationships is going to be key. We talked about empathy already. We need to teach empathy. We also have to have empathy to really get to know our students, to really know and walk in their shoes and really know where they're coming from. And that's the only way to truly build that bridge, right? And really connect with them and really understand their needs. And just creating a place where it's, I think it's Seymour Papert that talks a lot about this, and there's a term that he uses at some point that he calls hard fun, right? But it's learning through play, learning by having fun, exploratory type of learning. But the hard fun is just where you make it challenging enough, and you want to make learning challenging enough that it's gonna stimulate the mind. It's gonna make the person work, but it's not so hard that someone's just gonna give up on it, right? And so you need that resiliency. You need that passion, like Jessica was mentioning earlier. You need that grit, but that's what we need to instill in them. So those are part of those conditions that we need to build in order to create a better learning environment.
Thank you.
I think,
Mari,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Mari, were you going to add something?
I think that something that is very important is student choice. You know, it's usually we get with the standards and we try to, teach all the standards to every single student. And I think within teaching those standards, there has to be room for students to choose what is it that they want to study. It doesn't have to be, even if it's just a biology classroom, which is what I teach. If they want to study something related to physics or chemistry, I mean, we have physics and chemistry teachers at the high school, so they could be resources for their special interest project. And then the other one is, trying to get an authentic audience for the projects that the students make. Um, if they make a project and it's just going to be a project for me to see and grade, it has maybe no relevance for them. But if you make that project maybe to be presented to kids in the elementary, or maybe to put it on a website and then get feedback from that authentic audience, that's going to bring that project and the learning that the students and the passion that the students are going to put into it, it's just going to bring it to a different level.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I add, Mr. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I wanted to add on to where Magallanes was talking about how we need to find out what our students, what their passions are, and build onto that. I believe that, or I strongly believe that in 8th grade we should have a variety of choices so students explore and see what they like, so that way in high school they can go more towards that passion. And if they don't like it, that's completely fine, and they can go somewhere else. But to be able to build on their curiosity and so that way they can explore more in depth on things that they don't even consider that they might like, that I think we should enforce more in early ages. Like for me, I took MESA my freshman year, and I had no interest in engineering, no interest in anything engineering wise. And I didn't even want to take the class, but they gave it to me. And I really didn't think that I was going to like it as much as I do now. And then bringing back to having relationships with teachers. When I was a freshman, I was, doing my work and everything. And I guess Magallanes saw potential in me because he went ahead and he grabbed me and he told me that you know, that I was smart and that he thinks that I should join robotics. And of course I did. And from there, I found out that I have such a big passion towards any like engineering, anything science, anything math. I have such a big passion towards that, and I just love learning about that. And I feel like that's really important to enforce relationships with teachers and to help find what kids really enjoy early on, so that way they can explore more about it in high school, because that's when it's most important, because your high school years is what you're going to be reporting on when you do college applications and you know, anything, interviews for work. It's all going to rely on your college and high school experiences.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. To add on to what Yanezi said, I like, again, we should give the students, you know, more freedom to make more decisions, because, you know, it's, how do I say this? When you go to college, you know, you're just like, you're asked with so many things like, what major did you want? What are you gonna do, etc. And if we just, you know, standardize everything at the high school level, you're not really giving the students the chance to explore. You know, they don't really have the opportunity to explore their passions or something, you know, things like that. Something else that I noticed is that, like, because of, you know, how education, you know, traditionally is, there's a lot of pressure in students to just take, you know, for example, just take a bunch of APs, take this, take that, you know. And it just goes to the point that they're only taking APs or advanced classes for the sake of having the higher GPA, but they're actually not invested in it to the point that I get actual valuable information from it, right? On the other hand, if, you know, you encourage students to, you know, explore more, you know, I guess go with your gut, you know, like, okay, I want to try this out, I want to try that out. You could see that as like an actual valuable experience that you could think, okay, maybe I thought this was a good, or maybe this was bad, you know, but not just like, oh, higher GPA, oh, all these APs, oh, this and that. Because like in the first meeting that we had, I actually do remember, I don't know which alumni it was, but she's like, there's like this culture of just competition, and it really doesn't get anyone nowhere, because GPA and all that stuff doesn't necessarily determine your success in life after. So yeah, that's it.
That was Renee. Yeah, she did mention it. Jessica?
I do want to mention something, and something that is sad and maybe it shouldn't be that way, but college is very competitive. So I think in a way, being competitive in high school did help me in college, because that GPA really is important, because in the first years they have something that is called weeding. So in the first years, they just want to take out as many students as they can out. So you really have to be able to keep that GPA and be able to do your best in those classes, if you want to continue on. So I think fostering competition is also important. For example, in Mesa, you make your projects, you have fun, you build these amazing robots, but then you have competition because you're able to learn from being able to compete and seeing the other students. And there's also something to learn from that. I agree that learning should be fun, and we shouldn't be competing with each other. But you should also try to reach excellency, and I think that is something that they have told me. At least in college, they always said, try always work for excellency with passion. And that is something that one of my professors told me. So I think we all have our own unique journey. You have your own journey. You want to be an engineer, or whatever your path will be, you go for that. But you go for that, but don't look on the sides for other students, because at the end of the day, that will be your career. And so I think you are responsible for your learning. So learn, get as much as you can from everything, and don't look to the sides. I think that is something that definitely we should learn, because you don't know how other people are struggling. And definitely just focus on your career and you will do amazing. And I think that is something that I had to learn. When I came into college, I felt like, oh, they're doing so much better than me. They have higher GPAs. Am I going to graduate? Am I good enough? And these are questions that always come out. But later on, you realize well, everything that I struggled is going to help me be better and study better. And I'm going to learn from my mistakes so that I can do this. And you will have students that will help you, and you will form your own group and be able to go through all of that. But at the end of the day, it is a process that you have to learn. And you have to learn that don't compare yourself to others. It is your journey, and you will get through it, but you have to be able to learn from everything that you're going through.
Thank you.
I agree with everything you're saying. I believe that competition is really good for you as long as you know your worth, because you get to self-reflect through it. You get to see what you did wrong, see where you can improve, so you can do better, because that's what competition is. So you can try to be the best person, and through that, it'll help you see what your mistakes are and where you can improve, and that's self-reflection.
So I got a couple of questions. Well, I have one question specifically from and Eduardo's helping me with the chat there on YouTube. So I want to pose two real quick questions to Jessica, and then I want to do a wraparound for everybody, and because it is getting a little bit late, and I mean I could be here all night, but and we do have some things to do. It's just a fascinating conversation. But Jessica, two quick questions for you. One is, I want to come right back to you to that question. What would your suggestions be to continue to foster a love of learning in school? And a second question, and it came from the chat, is how do we then also just foster that to have students? Because you mentioned excellency. How do we foster that in students to be able to want to strive for excellency?
So on the first question, in being able to foster the love for learning in students, I think I remember having this conversation with one of my best friends, and she just graduated from UCLA. And I was talking to Samantha, and she told me, I think students need to be able to see how relevant everything we learn is to life. So instead of having this formula, instead of having this equation or learning all of this theory, I think students should see how this really applies to life. For example, oh, we just maybe in class saying, oh, we just went through this exercise. Now let's see how it applies to life by seeing, for example, how torque applies to the wheels in a car, or by saying, we learned about this in history. Let's see how it is still relevant today, how it is affecting us right now. Or in science, instead of learning the theory, okay, let's do an experiment. Let's bring all of the flasks and let's be able to see it. So I think one of the main reasons why I decided to be an engineer was because I joined Mesa. I was able to do little cars and robots and all of these things. So I was able to work with my hands and see how math, science, and technology worked in real life. So I think when you get this theory, when you get this word, and you translate it into something a student can see and can do and can feel, I think that's when they see, wow, if I learn this, I can become an engineer, and I can make a ventilator, or I can make a dialysis machine. I can make airplanes. I can change people's lives with everything that I'm learning, because everything that we learn is relevant somehow. So I think my way to implement love for learning would be giving more autonomy to the students and showing them how everything we learn can is relevant to us. Like history is relevant because we don't want to repeat the same mistakes from the past. And we are seeing so many mistakes right now in the circumstances that we're living right now in our nation, and so many other things. And math, how math can be used in doing engineering and all of these other things. And literature, how like amazing all of these writings have been from the past and how they still impact today. So I think that is my take on how to foster learning, just showing the students how it applies to real life. And on excellency, I think we need to show students that when they do something, they need to give it their all. And I think that is something that we learn on our own. So my professor would always say, if you're going to turn this in, you need to turn it in not 100, but 110%. And I think someone in the panel mentioned that. And that is very true, because when you're truly passionate about something, you're not going to give it 50%. or 10%, you're gonna give it your best. So when you do something with excellency, it means that you gave it your 110%. It may not be amazing, it may not be the best thing, but if you truly gave it your best, that makes it excellent. It does not make it your okay effort or your good effort. It makes it your excellent effort. And I think giving or showing excellency to our students can make the complete difference in showing them that whatever they do, it needs to be their best and their best effort. Because through time, that is something that will help them not only in school but in their personal lives as well. I think that in education, we need to foster students to learn, but also to be better human beings and good citizens of our society, because that is how we contribute. That is how we show them to be excellent, not only in what they do, but how they are, and always giving their best. So that is my answer.
Thank you, Jessica.
And to bring others along to add on to that.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm gonna ask this one. We're gonna do a wraparound, and we'll finish up with this question. We started in the purpose of viewing the documentary together as a community. The whole purpose was to really have our conversations around what are our hopes and dreams for Calexico Unified School District. So I pose that question for you. I'd like for every single one of you just take turns, and we'll start in the same order going around. We'll start with actually we'll give Jessica a little bit of a break because she just gave 2 responses. So I'm gonna start with Karina. What are your hopes and dreams for Calexico Unified School District? And it'll be the same question, and we'll just kind of wrap around there.
What a wonderful question. I think coming from the background that in this discussion that we've been having today, just the development of the students finding their voice, finding their passion, finding what makes learning meaningful to them. And along the way, you know, finding ways of becoming productive citizens as they get older and they finish their education or their pathway. But I think most importantly, to continue to love learning and to become those lifelong learners that we've been discussing today. If anything, that they find their passion in what they're going to do in life.
Thank you so much. Fernando?
Yeah, I totally agree with Ms. Montaño. I mean, just finding that love of learning and really instilling that in our students is going to be key, and it really is, you know, a testament to the students that we have here, to the college students that we have here, or college graduates that we have here, that they got to get that little feel or taste for what they really were passionate about, and that took them on into the careers that they're in now, and that's really powerful. That's really amazing, because not everybody has that opportunity. So it is a big privilege, and like I think Jessica mentioned earlier that her grandmother mentioned that education was a privilege, and unfortunately for many people it is. For many of us it is a privilege, and especially a privilege to be able to study and learn what we love and what we're passionate about. And I think if every student could have that opportunity to have that and experience that, we really can say that we're successful and that we're doing our jobs to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Esmeralda?
Basically innovating how we educate students today, so we can build their, or more like our, because I'm a student right now, character. So therefore we can find our passions, find what we want to do, and that way build our love for learning.
Thank you. Ceci?
I think what I want for future Calexico generations is for students to acknowledge the leaders in them. I want them to graduate Calexico High School knowing that they're leaders, step into the real world, and just know that they're leaders, not try to find their leadership skills somewhere over there. I want them leaving Calexico knowing that they're leaders. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Mario?
I think it would be great if we can institutionalize throughout Calexico district a program that would allow the students to have passion and voice, and that would bring an authentic audience to them, so that those projects can reach more than just the classroom.
Thank you. Yanesi?
As much as I would love to see the community grow as a whole, what I would love to see is confidence within the students. Because I don't know if it's because we live in such a small town and not a lot of people leave, or if we do leave, we go to San Diego, we don't leave far, or we don't go far. I really want to see the students, the future generations, they want to see their ambitions. I want them to dream big and not think, oh, I live in such a small town and there's no opportunity, so I'm not going to go anywhere. No, that's an even bigger reason for you to become successful, because you can say, I started from zero and I went up and I went up and I went up and I became the successful person with a successful business or whatever you want to do. And just, I want to see confidence, because I know a lot of people amongst my peers, I know a lot of people are scared to leave because their entire family is here or beyond the border. Like, everyone is here and they stay here and they're scared to leave, and they're scared that they're not going to be enough because Calexico is such a small town and no one knows about it. So I just want to see confidence. I want to see people, when I'm older, I want to see students from Calexico just grow and become important people.
Thank you. Terry? I don't know if Terry, I think Terry might have lost. Let me see. I thought I lost the signal there. Go ahead, Terry.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Just as Ms. Rodriguez, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Janesi,
Yanesi.
that every student, I have the privilege to work with kindergartners, and you see the spark in them for the love of learning. And as she said, that it would be fantastic to see that students know that they're enough to be able to find their passion, what they're passionate about, and be able to go out in the world and live their passion, whether it is to be an excellent cook, whether it is to be a teacher, a doctor, an engineer. I'm so proud of our alumni. It's amazing. If I were your mother, I would be very proud of you. So that they're a perfect example of what I would like our students to come out of our system.
She has a former principal that's very proud of her too.
Yes.
Jessica.
I think the future, what I want for the future of Calexico students is for them to be engineers, not my type of engineer, but engineers of their futures. Because I think there are so many brilliant students with so much potential here. And I've seen it myself, and I think they all have the ability to go to college and get out of here and become professionals. And I think as a professional myself now, I think that's what I would want to see. I would want to see all of these students being doctors, professors, engineers, nurses, anything that they want. But I think it's important to empower them and show them that if I was able to do it, if Cecilia was able to do it, if all of these alumni were able to do it, they're able to do it too. So I think something that would be nice would be to have some sort of alumni association where we could talk to the students and we can empower them and we can tell them about our experiences. I think that would be a way to empower the students to do so. And as Cecilia mentioned, I think leaders. I would love to see the future leaders of Calexico and being able to empower our community, and most importantly, never forgetting where we came from. And I'm always proud to say that I'm from the Imperial Valley, and having students not only get out of here, but come back and be able to talk to this community and try to make it even better than it is. Because I think not only getting out of here, but always coming back to your roots, because they're the ones that helped you get to where you are today.
You know, we're you know, there's so many questions and thoughts that I have in my mind, and But it is getting late, so we're gonna end this session. But I like as we go forward with our guiding coalition, I like for us to have more opportunities to engage you and other members of the coalition and just the community as a whole into much more conversations, because there's so much more to talk about. But I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening, for spending the time watching the documentary, for engaging in the dialogue with over 70 people, and for just being here tonight in this live audience here on YouTube, sharing your thoughts. I love the commitment from our alumni to come back, and just your enthusiasm to be a part of this has been so inspiring. I love our students here that have been joining us tonight in the coalition and just giving us their insights into that view from a student has been phenomenal, not just last week, but certainly today. And I look forward to continuing to hear that voice. And just thank you to all our committee members here, just again for that level of commitment that you're having and helping us really process and think about what are our hopes and dreams for Calexico Unified School District. And certainly there's challenges, there's obstacles, but I want to say that really coming together and continuing that dialogue, how can we navigate the obstacles? How can we navigate the traditional things that have gone in the way? And how can we be able to fulfill those obligations while still be able to strive for excellency in achieving our hopes and dreams? And I think when it comes in terms of leadership, certainly I got to share something with the alumni and the kiddos. When I asked for people to join here on YouTube Live, I was kind of had like a little internal competition, right? Was I going to get a quicker response from the students and the alumni or the adults in the organization? I'm not going to share here who showed more enthusiasm or who was quicker to jump to the gun, but somehow maybe the answer for that one it's a little obvious. But no, I want to thank all of you for having that courage and that commitment for jumping in here tonight and being here. Certainly wasn't easy, and believe it or not, it's not easy even for me. It's a lot of people think that these things come natural to me, but it doesn't. It is something that we all work on. But thank you. I think this is a tremendous value for our community moving forward. We have another meeting on Wednesday, and so we'll continue the dialogue there. So with that, thank you so much to everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.